The number of well-educated, broke women is absolutely insane. And I used to be one of them. Today, I'm gonna be talking about how I went from being broke with a master's degree to financially free, having paid off over $90,000 in just 3 years before I turned 30, saving $30,000 in 6 months after that, and making almost 6 figures in my first full year as an entrepreneur. So I'm excited to share my story and some of the things that I've learned, but also some of the things that I talk about and teach to my students that help them get just as good, if not better, results than me. So when you were growing up, were you taught how important it was to get an education? Go to school, get a degree, get a good job, and at least I know that's what I learned when I was growing up. And it has value. Like, obviously, education is huge. We definitely want to be able to leverage what we can learn to be able to, have a career that's not only valuable in the marketplace, but also serves to fill a purpose that we feel called to, take on. But what we don't learn in school is how to leverage our degrees to actually make money, and how to do it in a way that's not going to leave us feeling really discouraged and defeated at the end of the day. So I know for me, getting my student loan so that I could get educated, was a choice that I made while I was sober and wasn't being coerced. Like, it was something that I did of my own volition, but I didn't know any of the implications of what I was signing myself up for. And I literally just talked to a lady recently who said, the one thing that she wishes was that she knew, what it was she was getting herself into up front. And it is what it is, right? We, used the funds that we received, hopefully in the right way, to get our education. But a lot of the time it could leave us feeling like, we went down the wrong path altogether because we didn't, get the return on our investment. And so for me, when I graduated in 2015 with my master's degree in marriage and family therapy, I, right after, started teaching at the university part-time. I was in private practice part-time. And one of the reasons why I went into, school to become a therapist was so that I could have flexibility in scheduling, partially because I also am in performing arts. So I wanted to be able to go on auditions and sing and take gigs and things like that with flexibility. But also I just wanted to be able to design my own life and own my own time. But, working those two jobs was not paying the bills. So by the time, a year later or so into being, out of grad school, I looked up and I was living just above the poverty line. And it wasn't until I read a book by a Nigerian girl who talked about, some of the things that you should be doing on your money journey to make sure that you're financially responsible, creating, financial independence for yourself, that I calculated my net worth, and I realized just how deep of a hole that I was in, because I was really not looking at anything that I was doing, to be honest with you. And so, with a master's degree, I was making, less than $20,000 in that first year after grad school. And when I became clear on that being the case, it was really sobering for me. And I made a choice to decide to, figure out how to get focused financially, which ended up working out for me. But I know that for so many people, it makes them choose to put their head in the sand. And so one of the big things I think that makes a huge difference is facing and confronting, what can be really fearful and anxiety provoking, which is your numbers, knowing where you stand, all the choices that you've made that maybe you need to forgive yourself for in this season, so that you can figure out how to get to where you actually want to be, right? And so, in grad school, while I could have blamed the school or the university for not teaching me how to leverage my skills that I was learning to become a career, at some point, right, it then becomes my responsibility to close that gap, to ask for what I need, and to invest, where I think is going to best help me get to where I want to go. So if you didn't learn a lot in school about how to turn your teaching degree into a livable wage, or your social work education into what will help you pay down your social work degree, then, what can you do in this season of your life to be able to fill that knowledge gap so that you can pay down your ignorance debt? There's something that's called, so that you can begin to make more progress. Now, when you ask yourself this question of like, what if, because obviously you've thought about it and you've played with this idea of freedom beyond finances, is where the fun really starts, when you entertain possibility. And like I said, instead of getting discouraged and putting your head in the sand, facing what's in front of you and getting some support for that, honestly, because that can really be helpful in your situation, will be the biggest game changer I think that you could probably experience in your journey. I had a lot of mental shifts that I had to go through to be able to shed the old way of thinking, blame, scarcity, in order to adopt, embrace, evolve into a more mature, emotionally intelligent, abundance mindset that helped me to grow my income by 3 times within a year, and actually manage that money wisely so that it would go where I wanted it to go. Because there's 2 problems. Either you're not making enough money to hit your goals, or you are not managing your money appropriately to hit your goals. And so I had both issues. I wasn't making enough and I wasn't managing it wisely. So I started managing my money first. 2017, I started budgeting March of that year, and I still wasn't making enough just yet because the year prior I made $17,800. But I started managing my money, which was looking at my numbers, knowing where it was going, tracking my spending. And the secret key is auditing before you try to budget. Like, where did the money go before you can tell it where you want it to go? And then it wasn't until months later that I actually increased my income. But I had already started practicing the skill of money management before I increased my income. So when I started making more money, that extra money wasn't just going to shopping, eating out, impulse or emotional spending. It was going where I wanted it to truly go, which was to eliminate my debt so that I could live my best life. So you want to be thinking about, which problem do you have, if not both, and how you can mitigate some of the fallout of your, leaky boat, right? It's like having holes in a boat where if you're not managing your money wisely, that's having a hole in your boat. If you're not making enough money, that's having a hole in your boat. And these are going to take you down and make you sink in your ship if you don't figure out how to plug them up. So that's why I say having support can be one of the quickest ways to be able to plug those holes, because you'll be able to pay for speed, knowledge, support, accountability, so on and so forth. And those who have accountability are at over 90% higher rate of success than those who don't. And that's across the board, not just finances. If you knew what would help to practically ensure your success, why would you not do it, is the question that I would ask. And so that is another topic for another day when we talk about things like self-sabotage. But, we don't know better, and we are nervous about, getting support, whatever that might be. But it could start as simply with, asking your partner, asking a friend, asking your pastor, speaking to, your small group, being able to plug in your community, finding an online mentor that you want to connect with. There's so many different ways to be able to go from being broke with a master's to having the financial freedom that you dream of and desire. Now, what I can say is that it's not talked about often enough, I think, because there's a lot of shame that comes along with it. Even talking about it makes me a little bit nervous, because I know I'm outing myself and I'm no longer in that place, but I know that there's so many people that can resonate. And if I'm talking to you, then I would love you to drop a comment and say, I can relate. That you have spent a lot of time, energy, effort, and money to be able to learn whatever it is that you went to school for. But there's a lot of embarrassment around there not being a lot to show for that, which makes sense, because you would think that there would be a direct correlation, but oftentimes there isn't. And even for those of us who are able to increase our income, because there's so many people who are making good money and are well-educated, but they don't have anything to show for it because they're not managing their money well, right? That being able to work on your relationship with money, being able to level up in the way that you think about spending and financial literacy, financial wellness as a whole, overcoming financial trauma, is a huge part of the journey that isn't shed a lot of light on or talked about as much, especially probably for women, and especially for women who are highly educated and women of color, who are a lot of the women that are in our community. And so if you feel embarrassment, shame, guilt around your financial situation, feeling like, oh man, I should have more to show for where I'm at right now. I should not be in so much debt. I should have more savings. I should be able to pay for certain things with ease instead of feeling strapped for cash and like I'm one incident away from having to ask for help from somebody in my family or among my friends. Then you're not alone, but maybe this is your sign to get serious and focus in this area so that you can actually grow the impact that you want to have in the world. Because if I know anything about you, I know that you went to get your master's degree, you've gotten all this education because you have a desire to serve. You want to help people in some way, shape, and form, and you want to be able to transform lives, but you're doing it at the expense of your own well-being and at the expense of your own livelihood. And it doesn't have to be that way. I know I come from working in nonprofit. I come from, an industry that talks a lot about sacrifice. And while, of course, sacrifice is a thing, it shouldn't be that you have to sacrifice your livelihood. You shouldn't need 20 income streams to be able to just make ends meet. Whatever you went to school for should be able by itself to make you good money, above and beyond to live your best life. But again, it's filling in that gap where you don't know how to use your skill to trade it for the value of what it's worth, not what you're worth, but what it's worth in the marketplace. And so again, that's a whole nother topic for another day. So I will cover that in a different video. But really, at the end of the day, like I said, some of the shifts that had to occur were going from being kind of complacent without knowing my numbers and without being serious about my value in the marketplace, asking for what I was worth, negotiating what I needed or what I knew my skills could get, because I hadn't done any research. I hadn't talked to anyone else. I was in isolation with myself, just kind of coming up with stuff that I thought made sense, which was a huge mistake. The other thing about it is that when you start to build out what I call your money team, it's going to become easier and easier for you to know which direction to go as opposed to doing everything by yourself. And because doing everything by yourself has gotten you to this point in your journey, successfully-ish, I will say, you're here, you're standing, making things happen. You may think that that's how you have to keep going and growing, but that's not the case. What got you here will not get you there. So if doing it by yourself got you to this point, congratulations, kudos to you, you get a gold star, but it may be the season where it's time to start getting support, outsourcing certain things, figuring out what your money team, and also just your greater support looks like in general. I know that there are things that I began to outsource as I started making more money and figuring out, how to close these gaps up for myself that make it so that I'm able to spend my time and energy on the things that make the most sense, are the most significant, and are gonna move the needle the most, if that hopefully makes sense for you. So each person is going to look a little bit different when it comes to those things. But being able to shed this idea that you are a one-woman show, let it be done now. Let it go. When this video is over, you are now a team player. You are now a leader. You are now someone who allows yourself to be supported, receives the gift of, having abundance of insight and advice from the right sources to help you get to where you want to be faster. And I always say there's two types of people that go to Disneyland: the people that are going to wait in line and the people that are going to get the fast pass. And either way, I guess eventually you'll get to do the things that you want to in the park, but it just might take you longer and you won't get to spend the majority of your time having fun because you're going to be spending a portion of that time waiting. If you want to be able to have more fun for longer, then you want to be a fast pass person. That means you're going to go from doing it by yourself to starting to build out a team, getting, the right support in place, whatever that looks like for you, and allowing yourself to receive the abundance. Because a lot of us are blocking our own blessings because mentally we don't think we deserve, or we think that we're not doing enough. Whatever the case may be, like I said, when this video is over, let's just mentally shed all of those things away. I actually did a video recently on my top 3 book recommendations, and the number 1 book is a book that I recommend all the time, and it really talks about how to identify the lies you tell yourself and be able to replace them with the truth. So whatever lies, right, that you're broke is something that you need to let go of. I think it's Ellie Talks Money talks about being pre-rich instead of saying that she's broke. She says she's pre-rich, right? Shifting some of those things in your mind to fit who you want to be so that you can show up in the way that's going to help you make the most progress the fastest. Now, like I said, leave in the comments if you can relate to what I'm talking about now. I want to connect with you, and that's the way that we can here. But before leaving you, I want to share this exercise, okay, that I think is going to be transformational for you. I want you to, on a piece of paper, yes, class just started. If you didn't already know, class is in session. On a piece of paper, I want you to fold it in half. You can draw a line down the middle. On one side, it's going to be, the broke side, the broke life side. And on the other side is going to be your financially free, abundant life side. And so on the broke side, I want you to write all of the things that accompany that version of yourself, whether it's thoughts, feelings, habits, actions, people, places, and things that go with and in that broke version of yourself and your life side. And then on the other side, I want you to put everything that accompanies your financially free, abundant life. People, places, things, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, habits, ways of being that live in that version of your life. Why? Because you're going to be able to see very clearly what things you need to let go of, what things you need to start adopting, embracing, spending more time and energy and effort on, giving your attention to. And that'll be just the quickest and clearest way to be able to today start seeing change. Because it may be not that you need to cut certain people off, but that you need to change the interactions that you have with certain people in your life. That you might want to figure out how to have healthier boundaries with yourself when it comes to spending, because you have this tendency of emotional spending or emotional impulse buying of things, right? And so being able to do this quick exercise, you can pause it now and do it for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, just kind of like quick first things that come to your mind and then come back. So that you have that clarity. My goal is to always leave you better than I found you, and to share the most valuable and impactful personal growth and development, plus personal finance tips and tricks, so that you can live your best bougie lifestyle. And if this has been helpful, I would love for you to subscribe, stick around so that you don't miss any future videos, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover in the comments.